You ready?
Hang on. A special edition about the movie X-Men Apocalypse. Okay, got it. Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. Actually, hang on. Give me just 1 second.
Yeah. Shut.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right.
Can you hear music behind me?
No. I thought I heard a dog barking earlier, but, no, it's all good.
Okay. Roommate's in the shower, so.
It's all good, man.
Cool. All right.
Wait on you.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
What is up? And this is 6 months behind, a podcast about Marvel Unlimited. This is a special edition about the movie X-Men Apocalypse. I'm Pat.
A one-shot, if you would.
A one-shot.
Sean.
Yes, it is. I'm Pat. That's Sean. A one-shot, a special edition to teach you about all the characters that are in this. What I'm certain is going to be a great movie. As you can tell, we're recording it before the movie comes out. So we have high hopes that it will be a great movie.
Yes, exactly.
The silence speaks volumes. He was either drinking something or he was contemplating it.
I was taking a sip of water. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a good movie. Early reviews aren't favorable, but, I never trust critics, so.
And our goal in this podcast is not to review the movie or bang on a movie or give you black helicopter theories about whether or not Marvel is trying to sabotage the Sony movies in Marvel Unlimited, but to help you enjoy the characters that are in this movie, tell you where to find these characters and these stories in the comic books that are in Marvel Unlimited, because we enjoy Marvel comic books. And our goal is to share that joy with the world, because that's what we do.
It is.
That is what we do, yes.
It is our passion. And if you want to hit us up at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That is the number 6 months behind @gmail.com. And what's the website, Pat?
The website is www.6monthsbehind.com. All the show notes for this and all the comic books that we reference will be on a special page that will be marked X-Men Apocalypse, where you can find all the great material that I reference. And trust me, there's a vast knowledge of this movie and these characters in this brain right now. It has been soaking it up for like 4 days straight, okay? I've been dreaming about it. It's true.
I locked him in the basement, and he's just done nothing but read comics in preparation for this episode.
Like read comics, okay? Then at the last minute, they like put like 30 new X Factor comic books out there, and I've got to read those too, So yep. I'm good, man.
So tell us, we got the movie coming. It's based on the Age of Apocalypse storyline that was, one of the biggest storylines. Yes. Well, it's one of the biggest storylines in the X-Men lore, and the movie is, of course, going to take liberties. They're basically playing with the same themes, may not necessarily stick to the storyline, but if you want to read what all this is about, where do we start?
That's a great question. Let me ask you this: Who is you had homework also? I had homework, yes, which was to finish which was to read the comics and sort that answer to that question. Let me ask you this question: Who is Apocalypse?
Apocalypse is in Saba Noor. He was born in ancient Egypt. He was shunned because of the way he looked. Turns out he was actually the first mutant. And through various actions as a young man, became much more than that.
Yes. Okay. So he was essentially the first mutant, and there's a very good series that discusses all of those things. It's called The Rise of Apocalypse, 4-issue limited series. Unfortunately, it's not on Marvel Unlimited. I was hoping it would come out this week, but it's not there. Boo. Boo. It's called The Rise of Apocalypse. Hopefully we will get it soon. And I'm considering, I haven't discussed it with my partner yet. Maybe after we see the movie, we'll do a 5 or 10 minute update to this podcast and discuss what we think and maybe add a few comic books that might be needed.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I just haven't got around to sharing it with you yet. If people knew how much we talked and didn't share ideas, there you go.
Yeah, we can do a little spoiler cast, discuss the movie outright.
Yeah, there you go. Let's just you got certain characters in the movie, and if we have to explain who Charles Xavier and Magneto are, yeah, you're on the wrong podcast. Just start with the Uncanny #1 and start reading. Okay, you got. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, we're just going to take for granted that you know who these characters are for the most part. Now, the ones who get introduced in this story, we'll talk about. But
you know who Storm is, but Apocalypse. What happened? And this is I'm going to try and give you the short version of this because there's a very long version. Okay,
yes,
and I tried to explain it to Sean today, and it took me like 20 minutes. But here's the short version, which he can start a clock, and I'm going to try and do it in 3 to 5 minutes. Chris Claremont and John Byrne reached a turning point in about X-Men 135 and 136 when Jean Grey / Phoenix killed billions of people when she was Dark Phoenix. And Chris Claremont didn't want her to die in X-Men Uncanny number 137. John Byrne felt that you have to pay the consequences for your sins and for your actions. You have to be penalized for killing billions of people. Jim Shooter happened to be the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, and as all the creators sat around arguing, Jim Shooter said, she's got to pay the price. She's got to die. She has to die in this comic book. Y'all can find a nice way to do it, but you got to kill her, okay? So they killed her in Uncanny 137. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with all this. All this leads to Apocalypse. Trust me. So they killed her in Uncanny 137. Let's skip forward 6 years, okay? John Byrne is writing Fantastic Four. Bob Layton is coming up with a book called X Factor, which has the original X-Men in it. At that time, which is Cyclops, Angel, Beast, and Iceman. And they wanted a 5th member in X Factor, which was going to be Dazzler. But nobody really liked the idea of Dazzler, so they wanted to, yeah, that was basically everybody's reaction. Dazzler, really? Okay. Dazzler, come on. So they said, well, let's make it Phoenix. But the problem was Phoenix was dead. And Chris Claremont said at the time, if she dies, she's dead. There's no bringing her back in 6 months. Okay, if she's going to pay the price, she's dead. So Roger Stern and Bob Layton and Kurt Busiek and a bunch of the editors at the time sat around and said, okay, let's come up with a good story where we bring her back to life and it actually makes sense. Okay, not just where it makes sense. So they come up with this convoluted story where she comes back to life. And it begins in these are all series 1. Avengers number 263. It continues in Fantastic Four number 286. And these are the resurrection of Jean Grey. I'm not even going to try and explain it to you. Let's just say that Jean Grey comes back to life. She's in a cocoon. If you've been listening to our podcast, or if you listen to any of our podcasts, you're going to hear us talk about Jean Grey being in a cocoon on the moon. Because when Grant Morrison killed her, the last time he killed her, he flies the shuttle into the sun. Wolverine pops his claws. Wolverine kills her, okay? And what does he do with her? He puts in her cocoon on the moon. Well,
Platoon of Jadoon on the moon.
yes.
Sorry, it's a Doctor Who reference. Go ahead.
That's okay. So the Avengers and the Fantastic Four find her in a cocoon in the middle of Jamaica Bay where the shuttle went down in X-Men 100. Okay? And Jean Grey miraculously comes back to life. Then you get to X Factor number 1, and in X Factor number 1, you get those 4 X-Men that we talked about, and Jean Grey shows up, and nobody knows she's alive. So you got this, they're all miraculously reunited. So you got the X Factor, okay, which is now those 4 X-Men and Jean Grey. And what they needed for this book was a villain. They needed a great villain for what was the 5 original X-Men. Now, Bob Layton's original idea, Bob Layton wrote, and Bob Layton's a good writer, dude. Bob Layton wrote Demon in a Bottle, okay, the classic Iron Man series. Bob Layton wrote some good stuff, okay?
And he's legendary in the industry these days.
He is a legendary writer. His ideal was to make the great villain for X Factor, Daredevil's villain, the Owl. Okay, that was his ideal.
I'm sorry, what? What did you
say?
Owl.
The owl. The owl,
it's going to take on all the X-Men.
Pointy ears.
Yeah.
Pointy ears, the hair, the cape, the owl. Okay, that was his idea.
Uh-huh. Great idea.
So,
thank goodness for Jim Shooter.
For whatever reason, at the end of issue 4, Bob Layton leaves the book. Okay, I don't know if he was asked to leave. I don't know if he was fired. I don't know how he leaves the book, but he leaves the book. Louise Simonson is brought in, who's a great writer.
Also, yes, very good, legendary as well.
Jim Shooter's like, fix this. Okay, you got 1 issue. It's due next month. Fix it.
Jim Shooter's editor at Marvel at the time.
Is editor in chief of Marvel at the time, and she comes up with Apocalypse. You get a shadow of Apocalypse in issue 5. You first see Apocalypse in issue 6. And that's where you get Apocalypse from. And she creates Apocalypse on the fly, just sits down one night, comes up with this character. And every great team needs a villain.
Yes.
Fantastic Four have Dr. Doom. The original X-Men have Magneto. Everybody needs a villain. The Avengers have Ultron.
Right.
Everybody needs a villain. Apocalypse was created to be X Factor's villain. Now, these issues, if you go to X Factor in Unlimited, all their books aren't there. And it's really strange because they, as I said, they put out about 20 or 25 books this week. And the books that are there, they're confusing because they kind of suck, but they're great at the same time. Because they kind of suck because they got this love story going on between Scott, and it's kind of a love triangle between Scott and Jean and Warren, the Angel.
Okay,
yeah. And it's kind of bad writing. This whole X-Men being persecuted thing and mutants being persecuted, it's kind of sucky writing. But at the same time, she's creating 2 of the classic villains of Marvel lore. She's creating Cameron Hodge, who was a member of the Hellfire Club for years, and she's creating Apocalypse. And along the way, she rips Angel's wings off and creates Archangel. And those are the storylines that are there. She does this in issues 10 and 11. Angel loses his wings, and 18 through 25 is a classic loop where he becomes Archangel. I forget the issues. I'd have to look them up. But there's the Inferno storyline where Madeline Pryor goes insane. She's been created by Sinister, I think.
Like Apocalypse has Mr. Sinister create a clone of Jean Grey, who is Madeline Pryor, and it goes off into some other stuff later. But
and that's who Scott Summers had been married to while Jean Grey was dead.
While he was thinking it was Jean Grey.
Yeah, it's all freaked out, man. And that storyline's there.
It's super convoluted.
Yeah,
it's all good read, but it gets
And then the whole time they've got this baby, and Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor had this baby. Well, this baby becomes Nathan Summers, who of course becomes Cable. In issues 63 through 68, you have I tried to find the name of the storyline. I don't know what else to call it besides the Sketty San storyline. And I probably butchered that name.
It's Ascani's son.
That storyline where he's taken from them, voluntarily and raised in the future. And he gets the technovirus there, and those issues goes to the future. Actually, Jean and Scott go to the future, spend 10 years with him raising him, and then he comes back as Cable. So, I mean, these and all this is, of course, they're fighting Apocalypse the whole time. Apocalypse is in each one of these stories. And this is where you see Apocalypse becoming the villain that you get there in the movie. These are great stories there in X Factor. And then beyond that, you of course have the Age of Apocalypse. Now, we can both talk about this because I have mixed feelings about the Age of Apocalypse here in Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
Because...
Side note, Ron Perlman's being considered for Cable in the next Deadpool movie, right?
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah. That interests me. He would be a good Deadpool. He's a little old.
No, he'd be Cable.
Yeah, Cable's old, but Ron Perlman's a little old too. So
yeah,
the theory is that Marvel wants to kill the X-Men movies.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't want them to do well. And I look at this Age of Apocalypse convoluted mess. Explain this convoluted mess here in the Age of Apocalypse Unlimited.
Okay.
And how to sort it and how to not sort it. Because if you pull it up on the Discover tab,
yeah,
it doesn't read right.
It gives you a suggested reading order, and it's not exactly accurate. If you go to Browse, then you go to Series, and you look for Age of Apocalypse under Series, it will give you essentially the same reading list, but you can sort it two different ways: oldest first or newest first. And I always do oldest first and read from there. And not all the books are necessarily really need to be read, but that's usually where I start.
Have you had this trouble with any other series ever? If you open up Civil War, there's 100 books there.
Yeah, and all of them
they're all in reading order.
Yeah, they're all in reading order. No, I haven't.
They're all
it makes me think they're doing this kind of last minute, throwing it together. Like, oh yeah, we forgot about that Marvel Unlimited thing we had. We should probably throw something up there.
Yeah, we should throw something up there for this Sony movie that's coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. All the books aren't there. Okay? They're the books that, if you just start reading this, first off, you're reading it out of order. So when you finally get it in order, you start with X-Men Alpha, and you're like, what the crap's going on here? And you don't understand, because what you really need, okay, to read this cycle properly, what you really need is you have to read Legion Quest, which is X-Men 40 and 41, and Uncanny 320 and 321. And when you read those 4 books, you understand what's happening. Then when you get to X-Men Omega at the end of the series, and you read that, which picks up where those 4 books started, well, then the whole thing makes sense. But because you don't have those 4 books in the beginning, you don't understand what the crap you're reading here in X-Men Alpha.
Okay. So you're saying that we need to go out and seek those particular issues out first. Legion Quest, which is X-Men 40 and 41, and then Uncanny
320 and 321. Yeah.
So make note of that, listeners. Those are the 4 books you need to read before you dive into Age of Apocalypse.
Before you dive into Age of Apocalypse.
Otherwise, no idea what's going on.
It'll just, you just start off an alternate universe, and you got to figure it out as you go. If you read 40 and 41, 320 and 321, you understand why it's like that. You immediately, in Alpha number 1, you immediately run into a character that's time displaced. And X-Men run into a character that's time displaced. And they start, it's immediately confused. And if you've read these books, you understand exactly what's going on. If you haven't read these books, you're just kind of lost.
Yeah, you're just like, what's this? What am I reading? This is X-Men, right? Look at the cover. Yeah. What?
Yeah. Yeah. But if you read these books, you understand how the world got that way. You understand why this particular X-Men is time displaced. You understand what he needs to do to fix it. And you understand everything else that's going on and how he needs to get back to fix what he does.
Okay, cool. So start there.
It all makes sense.
Start there. Then you can dive into what they have on what they suggest you to read on Unlimited right now. It's in the Discover tab,
Yes.
by the way. There's a couple other things in the Discover tab too, dealing with the apocalypse thing. Go ahead.
By the way, in that Discover tab, there's some cool books. Where did that go? It's under the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
A Hero Falls,
Yeah.
which is in that Angel storyline we talked about. The Evolutionary War, which is that's kind of a one-issue thing. The Evolutionary War was actually a lot of annual crossovers, and that's only one issue of it. But it's pretty
go
cool.
back to that where Angel loses his wings. That's a super traumatic event for Warren. I mean, that's like,
Dude.
I mean, you read stuff today, and he's still affected by that.
You read that thing. I've read a lot of comic books this week, man. That's like a 7 or 8 story arc. And I'm gonna tell you the truth, they're not all there. Okay, I wish I could tell you they were all there. They're not all there. But where he loses his wings is where he gets injured is there, and where Apocalypse rebuilds him is there, and that's still 6 or 7 books, and there's I think what's missing is that gap between 12 and 17.
Right.
So you got 10 to 11, you got 18 through 25. That gap between 12 and 17 is what's missing. And it's and what happens is in issue 11, his wings are wounded. So somebody shoves knives through him, that pin into a wall basically.
Yeah.
And in issues 12 through 17, Cameron Hodge, he gets gangrene in him, and Cameron Hodge makes sure it keeps getting worse, and he loses the wings, and they have to be amputated instead of him
getting to amputate his wings, which is like amputating someone's legs,
Right.
I mean,
and instead of them getting better. And at that point, everyone thinks he dies because of the gangrene, and Apocalypse takes control of it.
Right. And Apocalypse's whole thing is like, world domination, and he is Apocalypse, and he creates these 4 horsemen who are basically his top lieutenants.
Yeah, so in the movie, are we going to get Angel or are we going to get Archangel?
I think both. I think we get. I'm hoping that we get to see the transformation, because that is a big deal when it comes to Apocalypse. That's the thing that, like, you understand where, like, how brutal Apocalypse can be. And that's a real emotional event. Like, even reading it, like, you're just like, you got to sit down afterwards and just. Ooh, man, that was rough.
They just put that up this week, and that's dude, it was a rough read, man. I mean, it was.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotion that goes into that.
Yeah, the first time, and it's a long way in the future, but the first time Wolverine meets him, you got to understand, Apocalypse has transformed him into the Angel of Death.
Yes, he represents the Angel of Death.
He is the Angel of Death, literally. So, and that's what he is. He's death for Apocalypse. So the first time Wolverine meets him, Wolverine just goes into that feral mode and wants to kill him, because Wolverine is just overcome with a sense of death. And dude, they just go hacking and slashing at each other for no reason.
Yeah.
It's great, man. It's great. It's great. That Unlikely Alliance, that Cable book, is really good.
Oh, is it? What do they do there?
It's they're fighting Onslaught, and Onslaught has taken Franklin Richards captive, and Sinister realizes that this is really a mess, and comes to help Cable defeat Onslaught, and Cable isn't exactly receptive to his help.
No, I imagine not.
No, so they swap a few blows, and then they realize maybe they do need each other's help. And Sue Storm isn't exactly crazy about either one of them trying to help her kid. So you can imagine that whole thing just kind of, it all goes downhill quick.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, Apocalypse has been alive this whole time. Eventually, he finds this ship that he just kind of sleeps in for a long time. And in every few centuries, he wakes up and tries to take over the world again. And that's how he created Mr. Sinister, was he found this geneticist who was willing to work for him, because the guy didn't see any sort of moral barrier between, what you should do and what you shouldn't do with science. So, he creates this plague for, to kill all the humans and let the mutants take over. And just every few centuries, him and Mr. Sinister get together and just decide they're going to try to take over the world again.
I know Sinister is a series of clones. So every time Sinister dies, he just comes back as a clone.
Right, yeah. His whole thing is being a geneticist. He wants to create the perfect mutant. That's his thing.
How does Apocalypse come back? Because I know he goes into those
like that stasis chamber or whatever.
Right. What's the Batman villain? Ra's al Ghul. Does he go in like a Lazarus pit like Ra's al Ghul, or does he go into some kind of stasis chamber? I'm a Marvel guy, not a DC guy. Work with me.
It's like the thing is he finds the ship as a young mutant. And it's a celestial ship. And if you don't want to know what the Celestials are, just Google it. But they're incredibly powerful beings. And the Celestial makes him a deal and says, hey, you can either take the ship and forget everything here and just go, or you can be my instrument and learn how to use the ship, and you can do my bidding on Earth. And he's basically the instrument of a Celestial. The strongest survive, like death to humans, mutants, and even then the mutants should be the strongest of the best. This sort of like super Darwinianism. That is something that he got from that Celestial. And
where's that at?
I read it on the wiki.
I bet it's in Rise of Apocalypse.
Yeah, it probably is in Rise of Apocalypse. But I read it on the wiki, and you realize there's an even bigger thing going on beyond Apocalypse. Apocalypse is trying to, he creates his horsemen. He brings all these people to him to be his servants, and he wants to be the ruler. But even he has his masters.
Yeah, we're going on here. We wanted to keep this fairly short. So that pretty well sums up Apocalypse. There are a few other characters that we mentioned who are introduced in this movie we haven't seen in the X-Men movies before. Havoc is introduced, who is the brother of Cyclops. I'm not sure what he's doing in the movie, but you find him first in X-Men 54 and 55. That's the first series, Uncanny 54 and 55.
Yeah.
He's always kind of been a whiny butt, but
yeah, a little bit.
The last few years been pretty cool. I liked him when he was. I think we disagreed over his Uncanny Avengers run. I think I liked it and you didn't.
Oh no, I liked it just fine. I just thought he was an odd person to lead an Avengers team.
It was that whole trying to redeem the mutants after Scott Summers screwed everything up.
Yeah, that's true too.
And by the way, after reading all these X Factor books and a bunch of X-Men books from years ago, I realized Scott Summers has been screwed up for a long time, and I really haven't liked his character for a long time.
Yeah, you understand. Like if you read the current stuff, Scott Summers is a psycho, and you understand he's been screwed up for a long time, and this is just him going through the Walter White thing where he just breaks bad.
I mean, has he ever been happy?
No.
I mean, I'm going to go back and read the Marriage to Jean Grey, where I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, where maybe he had a happy wedding night, and maybe he woke up the next morning happy and in a good mood.
And that was the one time in his life. Otherwise, he's been dedicated to the dream of Xavier and brokered his entire life on it.
Apparently, because man, that's one miserable dude. Holy cow!
Yeah,
he almost made those X Factor books unreadable by himself. Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, man.
Okay, your favorite character is in this movie, Jubilee. Jubilee makes an appearance in this movie, who first appears in Uncanny number 244.
Jubilee is one of those characters who has lame powers and keeps coming back. And I don't understand.
Theory as to why. I don't know why, man. She showed up. What's the in the pre Secret Wars X books? There was an all-female X team, and she was a member of it, dragging a baby around. and I cannot remember which X book it was. But dude, they had her back again, man. And she's out going on missions, leaving the baby at the mansion, and going on missions with Storm and Marvel Girl, and dude. Anyway, she's a character I've never understood, never liked, never. I just never got her. Dude. My man.
Yeah.
Ah, there you are.
Yeah. Sorry. Had a thing.
Okay. That'll require some editing.
Yeah. Anyway, what were you saying?
Okay. That's a bunch of dead air. It's going to have to be edited out. Okay.
Yeah. I told you to talk lots, man.
Dude, I barely have my glasses on.
Dude, get with the program. Was that dead air the whole time?
It was about 30 seconds of dead air. Yes, you're going to have to edit. Yes.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. Anyway, what were you saying?
Okay, we're discussing how much Jubilee sucks.
Yeah, Jubilee sucks, man. And I understand why people like her, because she was like the focus character of that 90s X-Men cartoon that I love so much. But her powers are so lame. Dude, they're so lame. She shoots sparks out of her hands. That's it. The end.
The end, man. That's that. I read her origin story today. She's at a mall shooting sparks, and everybody's standing around going, "Ooh!"
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's how she's introduced in the comic books.
That's it, man. I mean, that's how she's introduced. Everybody's like, "Wow, okay,
yeah,
there you."
Yeah, and she continues to persist, and I don't understand. They made her a vampire for a while. That was the thing.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think she's over it. I think. I don't know. Then you have Psylocke, who is Captain Britain's sister.
Sister, yeah.
Yes. Now, she has a very long history because apparently, which I didn't know this until I was reading her Wikipedia page today, trying to figure out where her origin was. She apparently Chris Claremont wrote a lot of books for Marvel UK back in the early and mid 70s.
Yeah.
And was writing Captain Britain there and created Brittany Braddock. What's her name? Betsy Braddock.
Betsy Braddock, yeah.
Yes, Betsy Braddock as
played by Olivia Munn in the movie. Oh.
Okay. Dude.
It's Olivia Munn.
And then what he wanted to do, so he creates the New Mutants and wanted to bring Betsy Braddock over to the New Mutants. Well, to do that, he had to come up with a character, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. So in New Mutants Annual number 2, which is in Marvel Unlimited, he finds a way to bring her over. It's not a bad read, actually. And she goes from being just kind of Captain Britain's sister to being Psylocke. And they find a way to give her the powers, give her the mental powers. Dude, they've tampered with her powers and her look a million ways along the way, but that's where she's brought over into this universe, and where she becomes Psylocke is there in New Mutant Annual number 2. That covers most of the characters in this thing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing Archangel. I'm looking forward to seeing Apocalypse. I hope they did this right. These are all good reads. It will be www.6monthsbehind.com. There will be a page with all of these books listed out, so you can go find these characters. If you want to read about Jubilee, hey, it starts in Uncanny 244 and keeps going. God bless you. Go read them. Okay? That's what Unlimited's for, so you can read these books to your little heart's content. Okay? Because I don't want to read it.
I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about Olivia Munn and her freckles.
Okay. Then read New Mutants Annual number 2 and see Betsy Braddock naked with Doug Ramsey.
Oh, what?
Like 2 pages.
Oh, okay. I didn't think they allowed that sort of thing in comic books these days.
It was pretty funny, actually. Then Brian Broderick comes upon him, and Doug Ramsey's kind of like, what? Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to see the movie and then read the event and compare.
And by the way,
yeah.
How can you be in a cave naked with her laying on top of you and not realize she's naked?
I don't know. I guess
apparently he didn't realize it until somebody cut the lights on.
I guess you'd be a real idiot because I'd notice real fast.
Dude, he didn't realize it until somebody cut the lights on.
Yeah, that guy does he? Never mind.
He wasn't the brightest bulb in the building.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't know what to do with a naked woman if he ever. Anyway. Yeah. So read this event if you want to, and then see the movie, or see the movie and then read the event. See what's different, and we will be back probably in a week or two to discuss the differences, and of course a spoiler-ish episode of the actual podcast talking about the movie.
Yes, and you can reach us at
6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That is the number 6 months behind @gmail.com.
And the website is www.6monthsbehind.com. Look for the Apocalypse page, and you will find all these notes.
Fantastic. Any parting words for our true believers?
Everything you need to know you can learn by watching professional wrestling.
That is some solid advice. See ya.
Peace.